become a quilt project if you just put your patchwork goggles on and see it in a different kind of light. Hey, I have to show you guys something kind of funny. I picked up my tote bag from the couch the other day. I usually just use a tote bag as a purse, especially in winter, because I'm carrying like extra things like gloves and things. But I opened it up, not only is my tote bag quilted, handmade by me, I had in here this quilted pencil case where I keep like chapsticks and other necessities. I have my quilted notebook cover where I take notes and things. I have my handmade coffee sleeve. I have my tissue pouch, and I have my quilted like card pouch, card wallet thing. This is where I keep all my cards and stuff so that I can just take this out and stick it in a coat pocket if I need to. And I was laughing because so much of my stuff that I use on a daily basis is handmade, and a lot of it's quilted. A lot of the times I even have a book sleeve in there. So today we're going to talk about how to be a quilter if you don't really want to make big quilts. I'm really excited to talk about this because I have a really popular blog post on this topic. It's called, I think, 23 things to quilt that aren't quilts or something like that. And it's been really surprisingly popular. I think there's several reasons people might not want to only make large quilts. We're going to talk about those today, and then I'm going to give you some ideas for things to quilt and ways to become a quilter that aren't necessarily quilts. So I'm Nikki, this is Pin Cut, so let's hop right into it. By the way, first off, you can find the patterns for all of the things I just pulled out of my tote bag, including the tote bag, both on in my shop, and I'm going to link to that below. And then I have tutorial videos for all of those things. So just look up the playlist for my tutorials and you can watch all of those. You can hop over and buy the printable versions in my shop too. So let's talk about the reasons you might want to make smaller quilt projects that aren't large quilts. A lot of times people either don't have the money to afford only making big quilts, even though there are ways to make quilting cost a little bit less, and I have a video about that, frugal ways to quilt. But there's certain elements like the batting, sometimes the backing, or sometimes the fabric themselves, if you don't already have a stash, that can just add up cost-wise. And so small quilt projects are a good way to quilt without having to spend a lot of money. You can also thrift materials for smaller projects easier than you can for big ones. Another reason might be because you have a hard time finishing large projects. Maybe you have some ADHD going on, or maybe you just have languishing piles of projects that you just ran out of steam to finish. Small quilts are a good way to finish them. And an obvious one is that you just don't have time. You don't have time to make every quilt project into a large quilt. And maybe you want to try a lot of things or practice techniques, but the technique maybe is time consuming and you can't make it a huge quilt, or you just don't have the bandwidth for that. Or you want to try other things too. So you want to try a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Small quilt projects are the answer for you. So let's jump into several things you can make that are not big quilt projects, but that still make you a quilter. Okay, these are the ways that I scratch a quilting itch without making huge quilt projects. The first is mini quilts. I love mini quilts. Mini quilts can be thought of as wall hangings or table mats or little mini gifts or whatever. So many different things. I actually have 2 mini quilts hanging right here in my sewing room right there. I love to make them, and I have several others throughout the house. Some are holiday ones that I pull out during the holidays. Some are used as just little coasters. Coasters are really technically just little mini quilts. They're a great way to use up little fun prints. Look, I have one right here out of this banana print. Oh gosh, it has fabric scraps and threads all over it. See, my little mini quilt coaster. This one time I had made, I don't know if you've seen that book, The Farmer's Wife Quilts. The book is very cool. It tells stories of war women, I think World War II women, who formed, I think they would submit quilt blocks to magazines along with a story, a certain magazine along with a story. And every quilt block's story is in the book. And you make little quilt blocks. I think they're only 6 inches. And so of course there's 100 some of them, because then afterwards you can make a huge quilt, but I only made, I think, 4. And they were paper piecing, really fun to make, but I knew I did not want to make 100 paper pieced 6-inch blocks. And so I bound them each individually and I gave them to the women in my family as gifts, along with the printed out story of the women who had created them. So I love gifting little mini quilts, especially that was like with a story. It was really sweet, and it made use of the blocks that I would otherwise have probably let languish in a drawer, because I never would have found enough steam to make 100 more paper pieced 6-inch blocks. Okay, table runners are another great thing. They're practically mini quilts too, I guess. I love making these for gifts because I would love to gift everyone who I love a large quilt, but I don't have the time and the resources for that currently. So table runners are a great way to gift them something quilty, especially if you can sort of match it to their decor. I made my sister and mother-in-law table runners last year and they both loved them. But also I had started making several flying geese blocks. I have a tutorial for it and I started them and then I made the tutorial and then I totally ran out of steam. So what I did was I took what I had made already and made them into a table runner, and now it's one of my most favorite things in my house. And if I had not done that, and I had just waited for the desire to make more flying geese come back around, they would probably still be in a drawer until I no longer even like those fabrics anyway. So mini quilts and table runners and these kinds of projects are a great way to finish things and sort of rethink things that you may have wanted to make into a large quilt, but is just not gonna get there. If you're struggling to finish things, try to reimagine them into something else. A good example of this actually is this tote bag. This started out, each block was a block of the month club that I thought I could get through. I think I only made the 2 blocks and then I quit. And so instead of just letting them languish until I could finish or wanted to finish, I made them into a tote bag. I quit because I didn't have time. The blocks were really beautiful, but I just found myself too busy to keep up with something that made me feel like pressured, you know? So I turned them into this tote bag instead. And then this little pouch, I think I was trying like a strip piecing technique. And this pouch was a quilt block that I thought I was going to make into a quilt pattern, but never did. And so this was a great way to use one block. So if you have one block laying around, totes, pouches, bags, book sleeves are a good thing to do with those. In fact, even this journal cover started out as one crazy quilting block that I made while on vacation. And when I got home, I had 3 of them. So I made 3 journal covers out of them. You can find tutorials for all these things, like I said, and printable patterns in the link below. So if you just have one languishing block laying around, consider a bag or a pouch. Okay, hopefully you're starting to realize that almost any project can become a quilt project if you just put your patchwork goggles on and see it in a different kind of light. So things like baby bibs, last year I made that tutorial where I turned my baby bib pattern into a little log cabin quilt block baby bib. It was so cute, especially projects that already have batting or some kind of interfacing inside of them, like bibs do have. I put flannel inside. Anything like that, like my my jar cozies. I have quilted versions of the jar cozies. In fact, I'm working right now on a can cozy pattern, and I've quilted this little piece. It's all ready to be turned into a can cozy for my son's bubblies and his like sparkling waters, you know? So anything that already uses batting or fusible fleece or anything like that can be a quilt project. Just get out some scraps and start making patchwork pieces. And this includes clothing. This may not be my aesthetic, but I'm sure you've seen a lot of people are making quilted jackets and coats. I've even seen quilted pants and quilted skirts. And in fact, I saved an ad because I thought it was funny. It was a quilt mini skirt. It was in like an Urban Outfitters ad or something like that. I was like, wow, we will really wear quilted anything nowadays. It's not necessarily something I would wear, but I'm sure you've seen it and people are doing some really creative things. I do really like when people put a interesting quilt block onto the back of a jean jacket. I would do that. I think that's really fun and cool. So my final tip for you is that if you do desperately want to actually make quilts, consider baby quilts, because baby quilts don't take as much time and resources as large quilts, and you still get that I finished a quilt feeling with the quilt sandwich and the quilting and the binding and all of that. And if you don't have any babies to put them to use with, you can so easily donate baby quilts. I've made some baby quilts in the last year because I was making tutorials for YouTube, and it was just so fun because they're so quick to make and they're so sweet, and you can use techniques that won't take you as much time as if you're making them on a large quilt, and you can use smaller amounts of fabrics. They're great stash busters, baby quilts, and you can so easily donate them to places that can use them, like hospitals and Project Linus. I don't know if they take baby quilts. I should look more into that. If anybody knows more information about Project Linus, because I've been thinking about this a lot recently. What size quilts does Project Linus take? Do they take baby quilts? You can let me know in the comments. And also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done that already so you don't miss upcoming tutorials and other pep talks like this one. And I hope to see you all soon. Bye.